Well, welcome everybody. We're so glad you're here. This is normally a time we would spend on a Monday masterclass, but today we're going to take that time and it's going to be our half-hour What's New webinar. And, if we can stay around after the 30 minutes, if you've got questions and other things you want to go deeper dive on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move really fast through a whole bunch of what's new. And you might be wondering, well, why now? We're always doing new things, but Scott and I were talking about it, and it just seems like all of it's come together recently at the practitioner level. So we got some things we want to show you in the software, but also things like certification, letting your executives looking over all of your projects, weaving this more tightly into your stage gate system. And then the way we go about training. The pandemic dramatically changed our training model. So we got a lot of new stuff at a lot of different levels we're going to cover with you. So what I think I'm going to do is just dive right in. It's as hard for me to do without PowerPoint slides. Some of you may know me, but I'm just going to take you on a tour of everything. If you've got some questions for clarification, like, Dan, that wasn't really clear, I don't understand that, just unmute yourself and jump right in. Now, if you've got questions where you want to go a little deeper, what about this situation with my customer? Maybe hold that for after the first 30 minutes and we'll spend more time on that. But Scott's going to record all this. So everything we're covering here today, you'll also be able to watch in a 30-minute video, which will make my conscience a little bit more assuaged because I'm going to go pretty fast. All right, so let's do this. Let's start with the Blueprinting Center. So this is where you go for everything in blueprinting. Now, a couple of things. Some of you have noticed that when you're in the Blueprinting Center, the tab up here says AIM Client Center. Now, what's that all about? Well, here's the deal. Some of you might be subscribing to our Launch Star product launch, which is another offering with workshops and e-learning and stuff. Some of you might be subscribing to our Minesweeper Transformational Project De-risking, which also has software and a whole bunch of other things that goes with it. That's why all of these are our only 3 offerings, and most of you are working on blueprinting. So that's why this is a little funky up here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start from left to right, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time yet on this homepage. This is new, about 2 months old. But let me go through, starting with e-learning, getting into the software, and then some of this is going to make more sense. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and show you what your executives can see, and then we'll move over into some other things in the training area. So first of all, not a lot new here in the e-learning. Some of you may remember you had to have a PC to take the e-learning. Now you can do it on a Mac, on a tablet, anything that's got enough pixels you can do. Review ones that are completed, keep going on ones that you're in, start new ones. Not only are Scott and I going to cover new, we're also going to cover a little bit of obscure, okay? So bear with me. There's a few things here that might be a little obscure that I want to also touch base with you on. When you're in the e-learning here, a lot of these blue tools are popping up. See this in the upper right? We wish we could make that bigger. But this is where you can also download everything as you're listening to it. The other thing is, if you know somebody who's maybe their first language is not English, they can click on the notes, or maybe if I'm just mumbling a lot, that will make it easier to go through the e-learning. So that's about all I have to say on the e-learning. That's pretty straightforward. Now, the blue tools, we've had these for a little while, but there are some new ones in here. I think you know that they're all organized by topic. Here we can go if we want to schedule our interviews. I skipped this one, market research. A couple new ones, check these out. Down below here, sample market insight reports. Some of you have had some difficulties scheduling your interviews. You're trying to convince customers to do it. Wouldn't it be cool if you could say, hey, we're going to put together a industry research report, and those who participate will be given a copy of it. And wouldn't it be cool if you could give them an example of what that looked like? Well, that's right here. Our very own Kelly Lawrence, coach, is a master at this. And she's put this sample on there, and she can help you with this if you need help as well. But if you're having trouble getting your interview set up, check out the sample market insights report. The only other new thing I want to just touch base with you on is the SALT probing method. Now, we've had this for only our advanced classes in BlueHelp for a number of years. But it's, you know, the what and why probing method, the what questions are sometimes kind of tough. Well, this takes you through senses, actors, location, and timing. And it gives you 16 different ideas on what questions to ask. So when you get a chance, check that out. Also, your coach will likely, if you're going through a new project, they'll likely help you with this as well. So not a lot new on the e-learning and on the Blue tools. Some of you already are very familiar with BlueHelp. This is a little over a year old now, but I just want to kind of quickly make sure you know what's in here. So this is a massive database. Think of it like a really, really big reference book that you can go to anytime you want. And you can really dive in on this thing and go deeper on a whole bunch of different topics. And for some reason, it is not loading very quickly. Normally it loads pretty quickly, but I'll come back to this. We'll let it do its thing. Scott, maybe in the background, in case I got a problem with my computer, you can get it loaded up on yours, and
Right.
And we can take a look at it.
So I had a quick look at the timings and things.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Somebody just, okay. All right. So let's come back here. We'll let that keep loading. That's very strange. And we'll come back to BlueHelp. Oh, there it is. But it's think of it as like a really big reference book. Now, at the bottom, there's a section on Minesweeper, which you don't care about unless you're doing that. But just so you know what's in here, these sections, like the first one on Blueprinting Center and Methodology, when you look at this, this has got some really helpful things on using the Blueprinting Center, understanding it, how to learn it, and so forth. But if you're wondering how it fits with StageGate, with strategic planning, design thinking, lean startup, Minesweeper, product launch, and so forth, just check out these. This is kind of high level stuff. I'm going to do some articles pretty soon on how it fits with design for Six Sigma. So that's the first section over here. Now, the rest of these sections, which are the same as what you see here, go into kind of a pretty self-explanatory mode. One on software, one on market segmentation, one on discovery interviews, and one on preference, and then the rest of blueprinting. But I strongly encourage you to spend some time here. Maybe you want to do an article every morning or something. You can see what we have here: preparing your team, convincing customers, handling confidential information. I mean, every time we get a question, we go here to make sure it's covered. If it's not, Scott or I write a new article, okay? And so if you go over this material, you're going to really have a really strong base in B2B customer insight. The typical articles look like this. They usually have, you know, good explanation, some graphic. Here's one on economic probing questions and so forth. Also, if you get kind of stumped in some area of this, like how do I get ready for my preference interviews? That's not always an easy step. So check this out. I mean, it'll take you right through how to prepare your top picks with a bunch of visuals on how to do this. Also, it's got a very powerful search engine here. So that's usually going to get the job done for you. Now, the last thing I'll say on the BlueHelp is, when we get to the certification program, we have some exams, and 100% of the exam questions are based on what's in BlueHelp. So if you go through BlueHelp and you're awake when you do it, you are going to pass your exams with flying colors. Okay. All right, let's go into the Blueprinter software now. Now, this is not going to be a training class, so I'm going to go kind of quickly with this. Just a few quick points. This is, of course, how you start your new project. I want to cover not just the new, but maybe a little bit of the obscure as well. Over here, if you use this little pin, you'll click on that, your project will always be at the top. If you're getting a lot of junky projects you don't want to keep looking at, you can hide them from view. If you have a top secret project you don't want to have searchable by your colleagues in your company, use that little Venetian mask right there. Now, I'm going to go into the software, and I always like to use this maximizer in the upper right here. And many of you already know about this step one, so I'm going to go quickly here. But this is where you brainstorm all the possible market segments you might cover. And this is where you can record your secondary market research. This is quite powerful. You know, what you found, where you found it. You can do build-up projections on how big your market is. You can do build a value chain over here and a great deal else. Certainly don't have to do this. This is where you decide what your selection criteria will be. So you can pick as many of these common ones and optional ones as you want, and of course, modify them. And then when you're ready to actually select your target market segment, your selection criteria are the columns. Here are your rows, which are your market segments. You do the ABC thing, and then you select one of these market segments. So if you've already got your market picked and you know where you're going, you don't need step one. You'll just start in on step two. Now, I don't have time to go into detail on this, but I think this is where you set up your interviews. Now, we're going to talk about certification in a little bit. In order to get your certification, you have to be on a certain number of interviews. And for the higher certification, Blue Belt, you have to be a note taker or a moderator. Well, how do we know, Dan? Do we have to tell you and send you an email? No, the software knows. So what you have to do is, if you are on the Amazon interview, you got to do a couple things. First of all, you want to make sure it's marked as finished with a date. The other thing is, in the prep sheet, you want to make sure that you are listed here as a moderator or a note taker or even an observer for the lower level practitioner. Okay, so make sure you're in there. How do I get in the drop down? Well, that's where up in the menu here, the hamburger menu, just make sure that you are listed as a team member, and that puts you on the drop down menu. But you got to specify in here. The rest of the prep sheet, most of you, I think, know about this. You can go back very quickly to 2.3 and add in more current state questions, trigger maps. Those are your master lists. The rest of this, pretty straightforward. And then I think most of you know, if you're scheduling your interview, that you can click on 2.2. And while you're on the phone with Amazon trying to set up the interview, you can be recording how to request. You can record on the right, but you got some prompts on handling objections, planning, and so forth. Check out those handle objections if you haven't. This is really powerful stuff for getting to yes for scheduling an interview. And then this is where you get your current state questions and trigger maps. I won't go into that. Just make sure you're using these generic questions. These are 40 questions you can pick from. And once you identify some of these, then they get added to your master list. Does not mean you need to use them, but that's available for you as in the prep sheet, you're selecting each interview. And then, of course, if you did a tour of Amazon, not doing a lot of these in the pandemic days, but this is where you add your steps here, give them a name, describe them, and then use these to fill in what's really going on in that project. And then use our Amuse method for ways of accelerating, minimize, upgrading, and so forth, ways of improving their process. And then, as you know, 2.5 is where you go to do the interview. Now, a couple things that are newer or maybe obscure, just so you're familiar with this. When you're in here, in current state, you can always add more as you go. Some people don't know that. Sometimes you're in here and you start getting problems. I go, oh man, I wish I was in a yellow sticky note. Just click this copy to sticky notes here. And then what will happen, of course, this got a lot of notes here, but you see it just added my current state down here. And then if I want, I can change this back to problems. So if you get into problems before you wanted to, that's a little trick to handle that. Now, some of you know this already, but if you want to change the wording on the left, you hit the settings up here, go to language, and activate the language converter. So if I want to call it not current state, but background. By the way, some people, they'll just go ahead and they'll use that salmon color for anything that's not an outcome and call it background. I could do that. Or if I'm doing an interview and everybody is more comfortable in Italian, I'll hit the Italiano, hit save, get out of here. And now I've got the left side in Italian, so it's more friendly. And then, of course, I need to know how to type in Italian here. Now, here's another little trick. You know that you can export these to PDF and send a copy to your customer. But, I was doing some coaching of a Dutch team, and they did some great interviews, I think, but I couldn't read Dutch. So one thing you can do is you can export your notes to Microsoft Word. And imagine, if you will, for a moment, that this is all in Dutch, not in English, okay? You just go up here and you say, I want to translate this guy. Let me go here. You hit the translate button. And then I'm going to translate the document. And I have it set up to translate to English, but you can translate Dutch to English, English to German, whatever you want. And this is a really nice way. So if your colleagues do the interview in Japanese or Dutch or something, just go ahead and export it to Microsoft Word. And now you've got, and convert it to English so everybody can read it. So that's a little trick that's kind of easy to do. All right, I think that's probably good enough for discovery. Again, this isn't a training class. I just want to hit the high points. I'm not going to go through how you prepare for preference. There's a lot to that. Your coach will help you. But also remember, there are lots of instructions on all these tabs. So it's really not as hard as you might think. But let's talk about what it looks like to conduct the interviews. And so when we're doing these, you want to start up here on a preference meeting. And then this is the main thing. This, of course, will start over here. And you can drag this over. Make sure you're reading this whole outcome statement at the top and reading a few of these down below, and take advantage of the comments. Then you hit the next button and you get their satisfaction. And so as you go through this, it's going to have a little Saturn ring down below here on whichever one you're on. But know that you can also jump ahead or jump back on any of these and change the ratings really quickly. And then, of course, when you get to the end of this thing, you'll have the big done button. A great time to ask people, do these all look okay relative to each other, or would you change some when you're looking at them? The last thing I'll say here, if you are thinking about going to side-by-side testing, don't skip this step number 2. Extremely powerful. Don't have time to go into it today, but when you understand how customers measure these outcomes, it allows, and what's barely acceptable and totally satisfied, it sets you up to do some amazing side-by-side testing. You can replicate their experience in your own operation. Now, a couple last things on this. You can also, this is not as well known, but you can change the language here as well. So if you do this, there's a lot. It's not just the stuff on the left that's changed. But look at the wording up here has changed, this has changed. So it's pretty thorough if you are doing preference interviews in a foreign language. So keep that in mind if that's where you're going on this thing. I don't think I did that quite right. Let me try that again. Activate that. Let me go to English and say that. Okay, there we go. I think I did something wrong, so I'm not gonna keep at it here. The last thing, there is a place to export this. That says export to PDF, and this is something your customers just absolutely love, seeing a copy of all the work that they did with you. Okay, the last couple things real quickly in the software here is the analysis. And let me open this up a little bit more. You can create market subsegments or market slices. We call them market views. And so you get to go in here and say, I just want to look at my European folks, and I want to even weight them. You can weight them by buying power. And so now I've got one I'm going to call Europe Weighted Market View. And it's important to start with the all interviews. And if you see big standard deviations, that's where you want to create these market views. Your goal is to make these smaller. So it's very powerful now. You can see different needs in different regions, but they're nice and tight. Go down the value chain, the same thing here. Now, here's something that's kind of obscure. Oh, by the way, you also can do this with your bubble charts, with your market satisfaction gap charts. But here's something for you power users you may not have used. Go to this export to PowerPoint up here. And what you can do is select several different market slices. And I'm going to do this for speed, just for the market satisfaction gap chart. I love to do this. If I'm having a presentation with management, I'll go ahead and I'll show them a chart like this. And I'll say, okay, boss, if we're going for everybody, remember there's big standard deviations. Vertical crushing overall is where the action is. But you know, if we really want to focus on North America and Europe, we need to really pursue glue separation. And maybe, but if we're going to promote this heavily in Asia, we ought to be going after our new anti-box puncture feature. So you can use this to target which outcomes you're going to design to, but also going down the value chain here, you can also use this in your messaging of your product launch to know how to go after this. So I think that's about all I have on the analysis. The last thing is to create the market case. Here you're going to go through and answer a few questions. Now, one of the certification requirements is that you are on a team that has finished your market case. So make sure that your name shows up here. If it doesn't, hit Manage Team, which is the same thing as using the menu, the hamburger menu, and make sure your name's up here, okay? And then you're going to go through these 6 slides, filling in information on this, lots of instructions on all of these. And then you're going to hit the Done button. Now, it's going to say, are you sure you want to finalize it? If you say yes, you now have gotten credit for your certification of being on a market case completion. And your executives, if they're looking at the executive dashboard, which I'll show you in a minute, will go, oh, those guys finished their market case. And now, of course, you can send the boss a 2-page PDF so they can see all of your glorious work and just 2 pages. Very helpful for just before your stage gate review. And you can send them, then you can use a PowerPoint during the actual stage gate review. This is typically done just prior to your development stage, the money gate they call it. And so I won't go through all these, but very recently, we've added a few extra slides, one that explains the outcomes, but also one that brings up some of the charts that you've been using. So you don't have to go and add those in separately. So I do believe I've covered enough now for the software. You can also go into steps 4 through 7 in blueprinting. You'll use our Excel-based software, which is still very powerful. We have not converted that over yet to the the cloud. Oh, a couple more quick things real fast. Up here in the hamburger menu, you know, you've got a search function where you can put in the word, coding and do a search. And anywhere in your company, if somebody had a sticky note that had the word coding in it, you could select those sticky notes and you could then import them into your own project. So you may already know about that. But here's one thing that's kind of a neat little trick. You can also say, well, I know Joe and his team did a great interview in a different project. I wish I could bring that project over to mine. What you do is you come up here and you go, I don't want to search all projects. I want to search Joe's project, which is the semi-gloss home paint. And in fact, I want Joe's Superior Paint project. So I'm going to take all of his sticky notes that Joe's team did and bring them over. Now think what this means. This means you can take any discovery interview and move it between different projects, okay? Could be one of your projects or somebody else's. Now, come down to the save as. This is also very powerful. You could take your project, and maybe you did step 1 in market research, and you actually had a couple of rows that look good for projects. You did one of them for guardrail coatings. Now you want to go back and go, ooh, number 2 was gas pipeline coatings. I wish I didn't have to do step 1 over again. Well, you don't. You just save it as step 1, give it a new name, and start up. You can also save all your discovery, all of your preference. Very helpful if you find you need to split your project in 2 at any point. I think that's about all for here. Don't forget you can add, market research, all kinds of stuff up here. All right. I think I'm not doing great on time, so I'm going to jump over here. And we've covered everything here so far. Let me just talk a little bit about the certification and the executive dashboard. And so the certification is the goals are shown in the upper right here. But also, if I come up here to our main website, public one, and go training and come down here to certification programs, this is also a nice place to see what you need to do. Basically, to become a practitioner certified, you just have to participate in 3 discovery and 2 preference, do a market case, do some of the e-learning, 13 through 24, and pass 4 exams. And then once you do that, then you have to do a few more. Now you got to be a note taker or a moderator, finish your e-learning, and do 7 exams. Now, so that's up here. Now, what's in the rest of this home page? Well, if you want to, instead of clicking on Open Blueprinter, you can click My Project, same thing. Or you can create a new project, or you can go to your projects, or you can see the status of your projects. I'm going to explain these colors in a little bit. Then if I move down here a little bit, you can see how many interviews you've done. And it will show you how many discovery, how many moderator, note taker, observer roles you had by the intensity of the color. Same with preference. It'll tell you upcoming dates, interviews, due dates, and you'll also see our latest articles, our latest awkward realities, news events, and so forth here. You'll see how you're doing on e-learning. 13 through 24 are required for your practitioner. All of them are required for Blue Belt. And what about this exam? Well, let's click over here on certification. So in the certification center, you can take these exams. It'll give you all these instructions. You got an hour for taking 25 questions, need to hit 80%. It's open book, so you probably have some time to go back into the BlueHelp and check on a few of these things. If you don't pass the exam, no worry. You got to wait a week, and then you can take it again. There'll be a different version of it. Now, when you take these exams, if I go in here and go, why did I only get 80%? Well, it'll show me which ones I missed and what I got wrong, but also it'll give me some tips on how to study up. So these are all BlueHelp articles. So if I go, I guess I need to study up on that a little bit, I'll go to the BlueHelp and I'll get a little more help on this topic. So to give you an idea of what to study up on and what you're already pretty well set on. So that's the certification. Now, I think we've covered certification. Let me hit the executive dashboard, a little bit about training, and then I'm actually going to stop. So this is a free service. You can set up your executives to look at not just one project, but a whole bunch of projects. Now, there's a little demo data here because you may not have a lot of projects done. And this is where you can see the project pipeline view. You can see red is the project is in market research, orange is discovery, green is preference. The dots are completed interviews. The diamonds are scheduled interviews. The hollow circle is a market case goal. The check mark is a market case completed. Your executive can click on these, get a summary. They can click on the person's name and email them, hey, why isn't this going faster? They can click on this and go into the project, and then they can slice and dice by geographic region. They can look at this by different time periods, different filters. You can even specify your groups, divisions, and businesses, so they can do that. And then they can also sort by market case goal descending, let's say. It's quite powerful. We also have a project portfolio view showing how your projects are getting closer to market case, how impactful they are, your presence in the market. And then, this is kind of neat, Your executives can see how employees are progressing toward their certification. So they need to get these e-learning modules done, 5 interviews, 1 market case, and 4 exams. When they get all the way to the end, they get a blue star, and now they can work on their dark blue star, which is blue belt certification. And then they can also see how much experience of different types of interviews. So maybe you're looking for a teammate who's got a lot of experience in discovery. You can find that here. Okay, so that is the Blueprinting Center, very fast tour. Let me wrap up with a couple minutes on our new training models. Now I'm going to come back to our main public website, theaiminstitute.com. Now, if you go to training and blueprinting training, if you want to show somebody a 3-minute video that captures it all, it's right here. It's under training, blueprinting training. If you want somebody to come to one of our virtual workshops, this is where we post these. They can come in for $3.95. It's 2 half-day sessions. We also use these not just for people to figure out what this is all about, but this is the beginning of the coached training experience. So that's where I want to go next. This is our training plans and pricing. So when somebody gets trained today, now that we've changed our business model, what happens? Well, they get 10 things: software, e-learning, Blue Tools, BlueHelp Knowledge Center, all the stuff you see here, okay? It's all glued together with the Blueprinting Center. And what we're doing now is they are getting in-team web conference coaching. This means an AIM coach is going to join your team and help you go fast, do a better job, and really move those skills along. And they're going to help you maybe in one web conference of the scoping. Next team meeting, let's prepare your interviewees. Next meeting, let's do some role playing. Later on, let's get ready for preference. Let's analyze your data. This is proving to be incredibly powerful in helping teams learn this material. So these are the 10 things that come with this. Now, here are the plans down at the bottom, and then I'll actually be done. Somebody can come for a trial, just check it out, sit through 2 half days, and they get access to everything for 30 days. If your company already has certified coaches, you might want to use this. They only pay for $13.90, which covers everything for that person for the first year. They'll get their coaching at your company because you've got certified coaches. After the first year, that person now only pays $30 per month for the software. They keep almost everything else in a Blueprinting Center. The e-learning is extra charge if they want it. They usually don't need it. But the Blue Tools, the BlueHelp, all the stuff, Monday master classes, certification program, all of that they keep for life. Even if you move to a new company, just let us know, I'm at a new company. We turn on the Blueprinting Center. All you pay is $30 a month for the software. Now, we have 2 popular plans. One is if you want to send a single team. One is if you have a business, you want to do a private workshop. I'll just mention the team one and then we'll stop. If you have just a single team, you send them to the public workshop. Each person will pay this for the first year, and then it's $30 a month after. And they'll pay $4,200 for that coach, and they get up to 12 months for up to 12 years of coaching. Up to 12 months, up to 12 hours for up to 12 months. I think I said that wrong. So at any rate, if you have a 4-person team and you have one team that needs coaching, about $10,000, a little bit cheaper than what it used to be for blueprinting training, but now you can get one team trained at a time. Well, thanks so much, everybody. We really appreciate you joining us. If you missed it, check out the video or the recording. And then we've got a couple more of these coming up yet. So if you've got colleagues, invite them as well. Thanks and have a great Monday, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.